Welcome to the EchoCast, episode 144, E3 Extravaganza. Horns blowing behind me sounds that I'm afraid to put on the podcast because it'll probably get me copyright struck. Welcome. This is a podcast about gaming of all genres, platforms, and generations from the perspective of a dad nerd with the occasional friend stopping by. My name is Morgan, aka Bond Diesel. And if you would, please take a moment to subscribe to and rate the podcast on whatever platform you listen to it on, especially iTunes, or if it's YouTube, drop a comment down below. Tell me what you think about one of my takes. Tell me your favorite color. Tell me your favorite type of porcupine. Whatever you want. I don't care. It helps me get noticed. This episode, we are going to talk about the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase, the Ubisoft Forward, Summer Games Fest, all the conferences that I really cared about for this. And we'll talk a little bit about the other ones as well. We'll have a listener question, some content updates, and more. I want to thank this month's Patreon supporters, Hassan, Christian, Darren, Tim, PK, Manmade Golf, and Lunchbox. If you would like to support this podcast and my other content, please check out patreon.com/BondDiesel. Okay. So getting into it, we are going to talk about all the conferences, everything that happened this week. It's had its ups and downs, right? So I am going to start quickly with the Summer Games Fest. I'm gonna kind of blow through it because the things that the Summer Games Fest had that I cared about also showed up in other places. So we'll talk about that. But Summer Games Fest, the first big thing that jumped out there was the Evil Dead the game. So it was from the Evil Dead movie series. In the spirit of the Friday the 13th game, or I think it's Dead by Daylight, or one of those, where you're a group and someone gets picked as the baddie. Also the Predator game that came out not long ago. So one person plays as the bad guy, everyone else is trying to escape or get away or do whatever. The Evil Dead version of this game, it looked really good. I thought the graphics looked great, especially for this like level of game, like kind of AA game. But where like the Friday the 13th game is a very defensive game. So when you're playing as the campers, trying to fight off Jason or whatever the situation may be. The group is always people, they can't really go on offense that much. They can a little bit. I've watched enough of that to see that, there are occasional times where you get weapons or call in a special character and things like that. But for the most part, you're just trying to get away, and most of the mechanics let you get away and not necessarily fight. Well, this Evil Dead game is very active, and you jump right in, and it's it basically looks like it's a PvE v the bad guy game. So you're fighting a bunch of zombies and other creatures and things like that, while you're also I couldn't pick up if whoever gets selected to be the other side plays as a specific character, or if they're more going around and spawning the zombies and setting up traps and things like that. So I thought that looked really great. It had a great show preview. The whole Summer Games Fest by Jeff Keighley, it's a very well-made show. And it was a great way to kick off E3 the whole weekend, even though I don't think it was technically part of E3. It was kind of like they were like friendly, basically. Planet of Lana was shown here as well. This was kind of an indie game. It just has a super cool aesthetic. You're going to hear me say that about a few indie games that got shown. It just looked so fun. It just looked really cool. It had a very kind of sweet, cool intro. And then about halfway through the trailer, you see that, there's some things going on in this game world that, things are going awry. I love this kind of, I think it had kind of a pixel kind of design to it. I know that's really popular right now. Maybe some people are getting sick of that. I personally think it's great, and I will take more and more of it. Jurassic Evolution 2 got announced. This was honestly a big surprise to me. This is a zoo tycoon-ish game from a few years ago. The first one I played fairly extensively. I, for whatever reason, ended up on a mailing list for the company who makes it, and got to play it for free and check it out. And I think I did a little review on it. And I liked it a lot. It's pretty simple. It's not the most complicated game. I didn't find that it had a ton of longevity, but I'm also not like an enthusiast for those type of games. But I really liked it. And this new one looks like they're really taking it a step further, and hopefully they kind of work on making it, you know, more fun to really jump back in and play a lot. But I'm in. I'm excited to check it out and play it. I love Jurassic Park in general, and the idea of basically getting to make your own park. I mean, how are you going to say no to that? That's too fun. The final game that they showed during Games Fest was Elden Ring, from Software. You know, the Dark Souls people. This has been rumored for basically years. Every single time that there was some type of show, there would always be some, oh man, is Elden Ring going to be there? The rumors is that Microsoft was actually trying to get this to be on their show, but they ended up going with Jeff instead. It kind of makes sense. I think this announcement within the Xbox show would have not been as grand. Even though I know how popular From Software games are, Sekiro and the Dark Souls and all that, I would still argue pretty heavily that's a pretty niche genre. The type of games they make, they are not my type of games at all. The whole point of the games is that they're very punishing and very hard single player experiences that have story, but it's buried pretty deeply and not a huge part of the gameplay. Elden Ring couldn't do less for me personally, but it's one of those games that I can tell for people who are into that genre and in that niche audience, or niche audience. I don't know how to say it right. It's obviously a huge deal. It's a big deal. It is the first game that kind of showed where I saw people being like, oh my God, like it looks so amazing. Like, look at this, look at these graphics and look at this. Where I was kind of surprised by that. It looked very PS4-y to me, or last gen to me, which is not a bad thing. I don't really think that any of From Software's games have ever been like setting the standard for graphics. I know the Dark Souls remake that came out not long ago was lauded for its graphics too. I wasn't super impressed. I think compared to the original, obviously it was super gorgeous. But I just still think it looks kind of drab and not really that interesting, but that's just a personal opinion. Obviously this isn't my genre, so I'm sure when you play it, it's probably much more impressive. But regardless of what I think, Elden Ring seems like it's something that's super highly anticipated by a lot of people, and I'm glad they finally got to bust that nut, as they would say. So, the excitement was palpable. Even though it wasn't my thing, it was obvious that this was a big deal to a lot of people. So for them, I'm very happy. But yeah, Summer Games Fest overall was great. I thought that these shows are so hard to do because you always want to open and close with your best, right? And so unfortunately, that means that often the middle is going to be a little rough. I would say that was probably the case here. There was a couple musical performances that for the people who enjoyed that stuff, then that's great. But I haven't really cared about Weezer since I was in high school, crying over girls who broke up with me. So that's not really my thing these days. And but again, just the fact that Jeff, who isn't a giant multinational billion-dollar company and all of that, is able to bring all of these people together and produce something like this is super cool. I always really enjoy watching the Game Awards at the end of the year. It's such a cool celebration of gaming. In 2018, the Game Awards, I believe it was 19. Yeah, 19. I mean, he his winter show, announced the Xbox Series X and showed it for the first time. I mean, it was one of the hypest moments ever, and for me as a gamer, and for a lot of other people. So it's a great show. If you ever see anything that's produced by Jeff, maybe stick to his big productions, the Summer Game Fest, the Game Awards at the end of the year. He kind of cashes in on other things that he does. There may be you may see like a show or something that he's going to do, or a reveal of something, and in my opinion, they tend to be pretty obviously him just cashing in on an offer. He did the Unreal Engine 5 reveal with what was like Epic and PlayStation, where they showed a trailer and it was kind of insinuated that, like, you know, this new technology was only for one platform, when that obviously wasn't true. And he kind of plays towards, I think, one of the platforms more than the others, but that's fine. His content's great, and this Summer Games Fest was great too. The second show I want to talk about is the Ubisoft Forward conference. This had a bunch of stuff. Nothing that I think surprised anyone, or at least nothing too big. But it was good. I liked this conference. It started off with Rainbow Six Extraction, which is the new name for Rainbow Six Quarantine, which was revealed a while back, which seems like it's basically inspired by a mode, I think it was called Outbreak, that Rainbow Six had years ago, which was PvE, and you were basically fighting all these monsters, and there's this infection, and you were fighting all these. It was essentially zombies, but other things as well. It was kind of a Left 4 Dead feel to a point. And so honestly, going into this, I didn't have a lot of hope. I just kind of had a feeling this Extraction was just going to be kind of that mode expanded a bit. And then what I'll say is that after seeing all this gameplay in the trailer and stuff, I'm definitely more interested. There's a lot more depth to the mechanics, and to what this doesn't seem like it really is just Rainbow Six, like a Rainbow Six mode that they decided to make its own game. It seems like they really have gone deep to try to make it really feel like its own game. It's definitely a spin-off. You know, you're going to see lots of reused assets and stuff like that. But there's also a lot of original stuff in this, and especially the gameplay. So Rainbow Six Extraction honestly surprised me very pleasantly. I was really happy with it. So it looks like it plays well. It has like stealth elements and all kinds of stuff that I thought it was just going to be a Left 4 Dead clone, and it would be that simple. But it doesn't appear to be, and that's great. So yeah, I like that. The second notable thing on Ubisoft was Rocksmith Plus. If you don't know, Rocksmith was a game, came out years ago now, that essentially it was like Rock Band, but instead of a little plastic controller, you use like actual guitars through some adaptation, and it seems like they're continuing that. And one thing I kept reiterating during the show is that while Rocksmith is not something I'm interested in, I would be willing to bet that Rocksmith doesn't make money for Ubisoft. But it exists, and not only does it exist, but they're making what seems to essentially be a sequel. So that's a big deal, you know. That's not a small thing, and it's something that there's not many companies out there, and I don't think that there's any big AAAs that you can find who are going to make games like Rocksmith that, you know, best case scenario break even, is what I would guess. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's like a microtransaction field day and they make gobs of money. I highly doubt it. So while Rocksmith isn't something I care about, I'm glad it exists. And I'm glad that there's a company like Ubisoft, a publisher like Ubisoft, who's willing to do those things. The next thing they showed that I was super excited about was Riders Republic. If you've played you know, there's a few of these things, even like Steep and stuff. Riders Republic is like Steep and a bunch of other like downhill bicycle, like mountain biking games, all smashed into one, with parachutes and rocket backpacks and all kinds of wild stuff. This game seems, if it can tap into the whole like Fall Guys type of hype, which I think it can, Riders Republic looks like so much fun. It looks like it's a game made to be fun, not made to be realistic or anything like that. It just looks like it's made. It looks like it exists to enjoy, and I think that's where games like Among Us and Fall Guys and stuff like that have succeeded a lot. And I'm really hoping that Riders Republic, in some capacity, can bite on to that desire that obviously a lot of people have. So we'll be looking out for that. There was more announcement of Valhalla DLC for I know there's a lot of people who really love that game, and that's while I couldn't even finish the prologue of Valhalla. You can say that Ubisoft doesn't do a great job of releasing games in good condition, but what you can't say is that for the most part they support those games extremely well. It's hard to find examples of Ubisoft treating their games like EA treated Andromeda and Anthem. If Andromeda or Anthem were Ubisoft games, their rough releases would be the least surprising thing on earth, but they would support them either way, and they would believe in them and really try to make them work. They wouldn't cut and run like they essentially have with like EA essentially did with those two games. So Valhalla is not for me. The fact that the main campaign is like 60-70 hours and then there's DLC after that, I can't even begin to imagine playing that game for that long. But for those who did, dope, and super excited for you to get this DLC. I'm sure it's going to be awesome. Far Cry 6, this was the second time we had seen this. They showed a bit of this at the Game Fest. To me, this looks like Far Cry 5 with a new setting and a voiced protagonist that you play as, which is cool that you can pick to be a guy or a girl. It looks like it takes place on a Cuba-ish island or a Cuba-ish country. The guy from Breaking Bad, the chicken guy, is the bad guy voicing the villain in this one, even though he claims he's not a villain in interviews. Far Cry at this point, what I'm looking for from Far Cry is that it's a fun 15 to 25 hour campaign where you get to blow a bunch of crap up. There's some big set pieces that happen. There's a big stab you in the back moment about 2/3 of the way through, and then you kill the big bad at the end, and then there's some wild ending. It looks like Far Cry 6 is going to probably be that formula, and that's great. They did announce some DLC during this, which was there's going to be, I guess, 3 DLCs where you're going to play as villains from the previous games from 3, 4, and 5. And it's going to be in some kind of psychedelic trippy version of the world that those games were, that those villains were in. It looks like they're co-opting the blood dragon kind of thing, that it's going to be related to that in some capacity, the digital world. I'm not hopeful for that DLC at all. Far Cry 5 had DLC, and it was the most half-assed, worst DLC I've ever seen from a AAA video game. It was atrociously bad. I liked Far Cry 5, but the DLC and then the game that came after, New Dawn, made me really knock that game down a couple steps in my personal feelings on games. So I'm hoping Far Cry 6 can kind of bring that back up a bit, and I'm hoping the DLC that they take some time on it and make it like worthwhile this time, because Far Cry 5 was damaged by its DLC. It made that game look worse. So hopefully they learn their lessons this time. They did announce a Mario and Rabbids sequel, which was a big deal. A lot of people were really excited about that. I've heard basically nothing but super significant praise for that. It's essentially kind of like an XCOM type of game where you play as Mario and Rabbids characters. I don't have a Switch, so I've never played it, but I've literally heard nothing but good things about it. So it getting a sequel is cool. It seems like there's some people in the industry who really liked Mario and Rabbids, the first one, but were concerned that it may not have been popular enough or big enough for a sequel. So the fact that it's getting one, maybe this is a Rocksmith situation where maybe the first one didn't actually make money or didn't really sell that well. But I doubt it. Either way, we're getting more of it, and for the people who are into that, then that's probably a very good thing. The last big reveal for the Ubisoft Forward conference was our first in-engine footage of Avatar. If you don't know, Massive, who also makes the Division series, has for years now, basically, in my knowledge, created a whole new team almost from scratch to work on a Avatar game with James Cameron and his studio. If you ever actually go back and read David Polfeld's book, the Dream Architects, which is about his career, and about 2/3 of it is about the Massive studio coming to be and then becoming what it is today. A big part of that book is talking about them trying to get this Avatar IP to work on, and they were actually another company was approached. They were going to offer it to them, EA or James Cameron's company was. Apparently, when they met with that studio, they were offered illicit drugs by the person who ran the studio, so they noped out of that meeting and went and they were actually, I guess, in the general vicinity of Sweden, and went to Massive to check out what they have. And when they were demoed Snowdrop in the engine, signed on with them then and there. So I'm really excited about the Avatar. I love that movie. I know some people like crap on it for being too similar to other movies. Let's be straight up. There's been like 20 movies made over and over again for the last 100 years. So if, you know, all games are just made up again, so I don't care if it's essentially the same story as Pocahontas or whatever. It was done extremely well, and I love the graphics. I thought it looked great, and I'm excited to see more from it. There have been some details that have leaked. I don't know if they're really true or not, but supposedly it's we know it's an open world game. Supposedly it's first person, which would be very surprising to me. It seems like at least when you play as the Na'vi, the blue people, it's going to be very like almost like the movement would be very parkourish. So it would almost be like expecting people to play, like the older Assassin's Creed in first person, which I don't know. That's an interesting potential leak that's come out about it. I did have it confirmed. I spoke to someone in the know who that footage from that Avatar trailer is captured in game. Like that's gameplay footage that was captured. It was probably cleaned up. I'm sure it was best case scenario with like a supercomputer running it. But that was like game footage. That wasn't just a pre-rendered in-engine CGI stuff. That was game. Like that was game stuff. And if you look close enough, it obviously was, right? I am super pumped for that. I'm really excited to see Massive get to flex their muscles in different ways. The Division is a better game than most, a better IP than it gets credit for, in my opinion, especially to the day-to-day gamer, not to people who are obsessed with it. And it's exciting for me to get to see that studio, reach outside of that bubble, and get to work on an IP like Avatar. And then even more excited, I'm even more excited about seeing what they're going to do with Star Wars. That looks like it's going to be just great. So, I'm really excited about that. The last note I'll have about the Ubisoft Forward is, for me at least, this was missing Heartland or Division 2 content bad. I know I commend them for coming out before the show and saying, hey, by the way, we won't be showing anything during this. That's commendable. Cool. From what I know, or from what I've heard, it doesn't surprise me at all that the Division 2 DLC stuff wasn't previewed, because I can't imagine that there's like anything but concept art and some stuff on words on paper to show for that right now. Heartland should have been there. It's a giant failure on Ubisoft's part. to not show Heartland here. They could have shown something. They could have shown anything, even if they just showed some really basic gameplay, even if it's like blurred out, for like maybe like a 3 or 4 minute segment where they interview Terry or Keith or the people who are working on it, and kind of getting their grand vision for Heartland, and what it means to work on like a spin-off Division game. Not giving it even a word of attention was a gigantic failure on their part, especially if this game is supposed to compete with the likes of Apex and things like that, where like, you know, there's just not, people don't know what it is, and at some point people won't care. So if you want to try to stack up against Fortnite, Apex, Warzone, you've got to shove this game down people's throats and give them reasons to be excited about it. So yeah, so that was Ubisoft Forward. Solid conference, better than I expected, if not a bit empty. Avatar was only the really surprising thing that we saw, and it's not that surprising if you think about it. But it would have been nice if they would have given something completely new. So if I had to grade it, the Summer Games Fest, I would have given like a B plus. The Ubisoft Forward, maybe like a C plus, B minus. If I had to give it a scholarly grade, yeah. So that leaves us with the final show, the Xbox and Bethesda Game Showcase. Obviously I'm a bit biased. This is a platform I'm a big fan of. I don't dislike PlayStation. I have nothing against them. Their stories, I am always eager to watch playthroughs and watch lore videos and watch multiple playthroughs of PlayStation games. I like third-person adventure games, but I don't really want to buy. I'm not into PlayStation because I would like to see them expand their deal a little bit more. I like the fact that Xbox, many of its headline games, especially now, are going to be RPGs and first-person shooters, and all racing games. That seems like there's a little more variety at the tip top of their games, and I like that. So this was obviously really exciting for me. They opened the show with Todd Howard, which I think was a pretty big power move to say, well, here's Bethesda, and this is us now. When you think Xbox, you think Bethesda. So the first thing they showed was essentially a teaser trailer for Starfield. The biggest part of this was that part of the trailer revealed their release date, which is 11/11/22, so next November. I don't want to say it's sooner than I expected. I know some people were even saying that maybe it would come this year. I never expected that. They've been working on this for a while, and that's why some people thought it would still be a multi-platform game, but they nipped that in the bud during this conference. It will be a Xbox exclusive. This is a Xbox exclusive game. It will be day one on Game Pass, just like all but a couple games in this whole conference will be. Starfield. It looked good. The teaser was great. Obviously, it's just a little CG teaser. You can't take too much from it. It's not showing in-game graphics or anything like that. It was supposedly part rendered in the new Starfield, or the new Creation engine, Creation 2. This is notable because it's the first time in an extremely long time that they have significantly updated their engine. For years and years, even when like Fallout 4 came out, the engine was already very outdated by Fallout 4, and they've continued to use it in games since then, including Fallout 76, which has like really, really shown its age. It looks bad in my opinion. So seeing them, make the real jump to what's essentially a new engine is a big deal and really exciting. It looked great. It had a cool aesthetic. The comment I think I've seen, I think Todd Howard or someone said it, is that it's NASA punk. So it didn't look like cartoony or goofy or like ultra sci-fi. It kind of looked like stuff that you would see the space in space right now, but a little bit more advanced. It looked so cool. It had a very cool vibe to it. At the beginning of the trailer, the guy walks in from walking on whatever planet he's on, and he like lays this like super cool futuristic but like realistic looking gun on a table, and there's all this flare and some kind of Easter eggs around, and it looked great. The soundtrack behind it was really, really cool and kind of inspiring, and it was just a really good trailer. One of my favorite parts is that there's this image right now that's going along with it that has different characters above like a planet looking off, and it just gives such hard Mass Effect vibes in like the best possible way. It was very, very good. I was really happy with it. It hyped me up big time, and I'm really, really hoping that this can be a very Mass Effect-y type of game. One, because I could use more of that in my life right now, and two, because it would finally give Mass Effect some competition in that genre, and it needs it. So the reason that we got a game like Andromeda, and the reason it's been it's going to be 10 plus years between Mass Effect 3 and the game to come after it, technically, is because there's no one to really fight them in that genre. So technically a game like the Outer Worlds kind of did, but not really. That was a very small project, though we will talk about that in a little bit. But yeah, Starfield looked great. Really, really good way to start the show. I really enjoyed it. After that, they went to Stalker 2, which is a game. The first Stalker came out quite a while ago, but has tons of mods and is still a fairly popular game. It's kind of like the Metro series. If you like combined Metro and like Escape from Tarkov, but then if you actually added some like real survival elements to it. They didn't go too much into this. This was mostly a kind of a teaser trailer. It looked like there was some like very, very conveniently shot gameplay in it. I still think it was pretty much almost entirely borderline CGI stuff, even if it was captured in engine. But it set a cool tone for the game. Gritty survival game, where you're fighting other people and these anomalies and monsters, and this open world. This game's been really highly anticipated for a long time, and they gave a date, April 28th of next year, so it's not that far away. It's going to be day one on Game Pass, the same as Starfield. Back 4 Blood was the next one. This is obviously a multi-platform game, not an exclusive game, but we did get a date, which I think we've had before this show, but October 12th, 21. So here in a few months, but this did confirm that it's going to be Game Pass day one. Like, that's so cool. This game is it's a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, made by the studio or the people who did Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. So this is like the closest thing you're ever going to get to an actual Left 4 Dead game. This genre has kind of come and gone over the years. It seems to be getting popular again with this kind of team co-op PvE fighter thing, zombie type game. Most of the other ones don't do it very well. It's always kind of very half-assed and not very innovative. This Back 4 Blood looks excellent. It looks really, really good. I saw people playing the alpha of it a month or two ago. It looked really fun, looked great. It seems like they've definitely iterated well on what they already knew from being involved in the Left 4 Dead franchise and taking it to the next level. So this looked great. But yeah, the Game Pass announcement there was pretty big. After that, and if I skip any games, if you're like, oh wait, he didn't cover this game, it's because either I just don't care about it personally, so don't take it personally. But I'm covering what I think was the big stuff, and the next one is the big stuff. So Battlefield 2042, we got some actual multiplayer gameplay. It looks nuts. It looks like they're finally taking the lessons of what did people like about 3 and 4. Let's amplify that and modernize it, and stop trying to do whatever we've been trying to do with Battlefield 1 and 5. It just didn't work. People don't want that, not right now, at least. And maybe people did want it, but when we got it, again, EA did EA things, and they never even finished 5. They didn't release all the DLCs they promised, and they've just kind of stopped making it. So it seems like 2042 is much more going back to the roots of fun. Of what's so cool about it is that it looks real, but it's fun. Like that's so there's so many games that mess that up. Where like if a game has a realistic aesthetic, they will sacrifice gameplay to keep it looking realistic or feeling realistic, when that's not really what people want. Realistic isn't fun. And don't get me wrong, it can be fun, but most people don't want to play Arma, and lots of people want to play Call of Duty. And that's because Call of Duty is fun and not realistic, and Arma is hyper realistic and not very fun. In fact, it's really boring, which is probably realistic. So, I mean, there was just so much stuff. There was modding your gun on the fly that was shown. There was, all kinds of movement mechanics and, elevation, the showing like elevation changes and stuff in that game. It just looked wild. It looked so cool. I love this near future aesthetic. I think that's a really, really cool thing. And that's going to be liked by a lot of people. It's not as wild as being like 2142, like one of their previous games, but we definitely don't need another, World War II game. So I'm really excited about it. The one big thing here is that it is not Game Pass, which is surprising because they have made it very clear that there is no single player. So this is going to be a $70 game that's only single player. So I wouldn't sit on this potentially coming out as a Game Pass announcement closer to release. It would be good for them, and it would be really good for Xbox, because there's people who I think would say, hey, I've been trying to find a PlayStation, I've been trying to find an Xbox, and now I can buy an Xbox and pay $15 a month or $10 a month and play this day one for free, or as part of that subscription, as well as all this other stuff. I'm going to do that. That's the type of game that could get someone to buy one system over the other, at least for now. So I think it's worth them considering, and I hope they do it. We got a date of 10/22/21 for Battlefield 2042. The next game they showed was an indie game that's been in development for many years, 12 minutes, another Game Pass day one game. It is going to release on August 19th this year. This is one, it's got kind of an interesting hook to it. You play the game and it's in 12-minute sections. It's kind of like the Outer Wilds, if you remember that game when it came out. And each time you play through it, you do different stuff to try to learn about what's happening. And either it ends with you getting arrested or killed or whatever. And every time you play, you learn more, so that through the next playthrough, you can do different stuff or handle things differently to get further in the story. It has a bonkers voice cast, like every single name on the voice cast you'll know. You probably like them in movies that they're in. It looks like a really cool little indie game that's gonna be a lot of fun. This is one I would love to stream and play with you all, so keep an eye out for that. The next game they showed was Psychonauts 2, which has been a very long time coming. This is going to be a day one Game Pass as well, coming out on August 25th of this year. So just a few days after 12 minutes. I never played the original Psychonauts, but I've heard of it. And I know it's very much beloved. And what's interesting about this project, especially that it's going to be an Xbox exclusive, because the studio was purchased by Xbox, is that this game started life as a it started life as a Kickstarter where the devs kind of were like, hey, we need funding for this, and I'm pretty sure it got funded in like hours, and they started on it, and then it switched over when they got purchased by Xbox, and now it's an Xbox exclusive. It doesn't look great. The graphics look like an early Xbox One game, if I have to be straight up. But you won't be playing this game for the graphics. You'll be playing for the mechanics and the show and the grandiosity of it. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. It has a really great voice cast. Jack Black is one of the big headline people. He plays one of the characters. James Willems from Funhouse is in it. He plays a toilet. So this looks like a lot of fun. I'm excited to jump into it and play it when it comes out. multiple of these games that I'm talking about or will talk about, what makes Game Pass so cool, and I'm experiencing this even right now, is, there's a handful of games a year that I really want to play, and I'll buy them and I'll play them and I'll enjoy them. But then there's like 6 handfuls of games that I'll see and be like, oh, that looks kind of neat, but I don't want to drop $60 or $30 or whatever on it. And what's so cool about Game Pass, and it's being exemplified here, is that, a game like 12 Minutes or Psychonauts are probably not games I would buy on my own, but knowing that I can play them, that they'll just be there on day one, and I can download it and play it for an hour or two, and if I don't like it, never touch it again, or love it and play through the whole thing. That's why Game Pass is awesome. These games are a big part of the reason why. The big giant games are almost a little bit less exciting, except that you get them for all for one price. But you're gonna play those. Like Battlefield 2042. If it doesn't come to Game Pass, I'll chuck up $70 to play it. Whatever. I won't really love that. And if it's on Game Pass, it'd be great, because I would like to not have to buy a copy for Xbox and PC. Because if I have to do that, I'll probably just buy PC. But I mean, it's just great. So Psychonauts 2 coming out here in a couple months, super exciting. The next game they showed was another indie game called Somerville. It was really interesting. It has another one of these pixel games, a really interesting aesthetic. Seems like there's been like an alien invasion or something, and it looks like it follows a dog, a mom and a dad, and a kid, a really young kid. And it just looked great. It was such a visual feast. It's going to be Game Pass day one, and they only announced it as 2022. So when you get into some of these indie games, you start getting into weird territory where, like, there's a chance this game may never come out. They get their moment in the sun during these conferences, and hopefully that gets enough attention. And hopefully Microsoft is working with them to kind of keep them going. But yeah, we'll see. I hope it comes out. I love what it was going for. It looked really interesting, so I'd love to see more from it. The next one was, in my opinion, the most important part of the conference. It was Halo Infinite, and kind of its re-reveal after it was delayed last year. Obviously a Game Pass exclusive, or Game Pass day one. Also remember, that's only for the campaign, the single player. Because the multiplayer is going to be free for everyone. You don't even have to have Game Pass. It's just going to be a free to play game. So it did get a general release date, holiday 2021. I've seen a lot of speculation why they haven't nailed it down yet. That there's some thought that they may do it on the anniversary, which would be in November. There's some thought that they may hold it off until December, just for holiday purposes. There's going to be a lot of really good. It's an easy sale to say, hey, grab this Xbox Series X, and it's got a 90-day trial of Game Pass, and you can just buy it and open it up and download Halo and play it. You don't have to buy, like, it's already there for you. So we'll see about that. Basically, they showed a very zoomed out single player, showing the actual game world. They didn't show us Craig again. We didn't see Craig's glow up like I was expecting. My only real issue, honestly, with this whole conference, but especially the Halo part, is that they really needed to show some actual gameplay on the ground from Chief's perspective to show us what it looks like now. I'm not expecting it to look 1,000 times better than last year, but I do expect that the models and stuff were going to look at least a little bit better. So them not showing that explicitly was kind of a bummer. But what they did do was show one of the CGI cutscenes with Chief speaking to the new Cortana. New Cortana is talking about how old Cortana, or corrupted Cortana, has been deleted, and Chief seemed upset about that. And then she reminded him that he's the one who was supposed to delete her, but he wasn't. And it seems like that's setting up a big part of the mystery of what's happening in this game. What's really cool, I didn't realize, is that the person voicing Cortana is Cortana. It's the person who voiced her in all of the games, and it's actually her model. It's her same person, but this is a fresh Cortana, one who has never interacted with Chief before. and I believe it's Dr. Halsey, who Cortana is based off in the first place, who is one of the big researchers for the USMC or whatever in Halo, and like created the Master Chief program, or the Spartan program, and is a very close to Chief. So a motherly figure to him in some ways, and also kind of Cortana was kind of his love interest, which brings up some Oedipus stuff, but we'll talk about that more, I guess, when the game comes out. But it was a super cool cutscene, and then they went into a big discussion and gameplay montage of the multiplayer, which just looks awesome. It just brings back so many Halo 3 vibes, which, from the conference, it seems like they're definitely going for that whole idea of trying to recapture that Halo 3 feel, and all of these really cool mechanics and stuff that they're going to throw in there, all these modes, and the big team battle, and it's just, I'm excited. I wish they would have shown some single player gameplay, but beyond that, it was perfect. I think most people who are going to be excited about Halo are more excited now than they were before, which is what they needed to do. Next game they showed was Plague Tale Requiem, which is a sequel to Plague Tale Innocence. This is going to be a Game Pass game, and it is slated for 2022. I have never actually played the first one. It's currently on Game Pass. It's the next one I plan on playing through. So I want to check that out. I know it's a highly regarded game. People love the game. It's very well reviewed and kind of revered. So the fact that it's getting a sequel and that Xbox was able to announce it is super exciting. So good for Xbox, good for that team who makes that game. And I'm excited to play the first one so I can be excited for the second one. The next game they showed is Atomic Heart. I've been told it's a Fallout game in this super crazy, bizarre world. I literally don't even know how to describe it over the podcast. So you just need to go watch the trailer for Atomic Heart, and then you can come back to the show. I don't know. It is going to be on Game Pass, but it did get a to be announced release. So I'm guessing 2022 or even 2023. The next one was Replaced. This one had some, I think it's called The Last Night vibes, pretty heavily. Is another pixel game, but it was very moody and had some really cool combat stuff. It showed, again, another Game Pass game. This one was only talked about for 2022, so no exact date yet. But it just looked really cool. If it releases, and the reason I say that is because The Last Night is a game that like 3 years ago was shown at the Xbox conference. It still hasn't come out. Apparently there were some issues with some revelations about the developer. So if it comes out, I'm sure the Replaced is going to be really, really cool, or at least worth checking out. The next game that I'm personally super excited about is The Ascent, and it has a release date of July 29th. So, a little bit more than a month. The Ascent is kind of, you could basically describe it as a twin stick shooter, but it looks like it's way deeper than that. And that's going to have a bunch of RPG mechanics and tons of choices of how to fight, where to fight, with equipment and gear and guns and your skills and everything. It just looks so dope. It has like a cyberpunk aesthetic to it. I'm super excited for this. This is one of the games I've been excited about this for a while, ever since I think it was last year when they announced it. The Ascent looks really dope, and the fact that it's coming out soon, I cannot wait to jump into it. This will definitely be a game I'm going to stream a whole bunch. I'm kind of looking at a lot of these games as like, I really want to stream again, but I really want to stream games that I'm actually excited about playing. I just can't really do Division right now. So, this is definitely one of them. Again, Game Pass day one. And like I said, July 29th, 21. So here in about a month and a half. Age of Empires 4 was shown. This will be Game Pass day one on PC only. Release day of October 28th of this year, 2021. It looks fine. So the game I've probably played the most of in my entire life is probably Age of Empires 2. I've played the various versions they've released in the last few years. The what was it, HD version, and then they remastered it more recently. I never could get into Age of Empires 3 because once they moved to a 3D model thing, the pixels just look better. The 3D models just look so silly to me, and their proportions are awful, and they just, you have like horses that are bigger than houses and things like that. It just doesn't look right. And I really couldn't get into 3. And unfortunately with 4, it looks like they've gone for the same aesthetic. And it's, to me, it's ugly. To me, it's like extremely ugly. I'm still gonna play it, and I'll probably end up playing a ton of it. But I kind of like don't get it. I don't get what they're going for. It's definitely kind of frustrating for me because I was really hoping this, like, it's the first game in a long time. Age of Empires 3 came out a long time ago, and so it's one of those games that I have been super hyped for. And then the fact that it's basically just going back to the Age of Empires 2 timeline, that I thought this would be a modern game, if you want me to be honest. And it's not. So I don't know. We'll see. I'm sure I'll play it. I'm sure I'll play a bunch of it. And I have a feeling once I play it, I'll enjoy it more. But it's got the same issues I had with 3, where the scaling of the units and just the way that it looks, it just looks really cartoony, and it's a shame that the real-time strategy genre has kind of just faded. Company of Heroes 2 is the last one I played that I really enjoyed, and Company of Heroes 2 is awesome. It is a very good game, and it looks very realistic, and it's a great game. It's a lot of fun. I just wish I was better at it. So yeah, Age of Empires 4, I mean, it's coming, and it's only a few months away. I can't wait to try it, but I can't act like I'm not a little bummed about the way it looks. So we'll see. The Outer Worlds 2 got a very creative reveal. So it will be Game Pass. It is a straight to be announced. I'm gonna guess 2023. The funny thing about the trailer is that the whole trailer was making fun of game trailers. So it opened up and it showed this beautiful world and this creature, and then it says, and by the way, this creature isn't in our game, so you'll never see it again. And then it showed these soldiers shooting and fighting, and the trailer talked about how showing this makes them have more pre-orders. And then it showed this big giant scale back of an open world, and then the back of a character, and the trailer was saying something like, and we haven't finished much of the game yet, so and the artists haven't even finished the main character, so you're not going to see his face. And then it revealed that it's Outer Worlds 2. So if you played the first Outer Worlds, you'll know that it's got a shtick. It's kind of making fun of itself in a lot of ways. The actual game was great. I love the story. It was very short. It wasn't very deep. It's made by Obsidian, who made like New Vegas and things like that. They're the ones making Avowed as well, and they're working on Grounded too. So man, Outer Worlds was so great. Parvati is one of the characters in it, is like one of my favorite characters in a game ever. It was just a really fun game. It definitely needed more refinement and more content and more depth. But that's what I don't think they were owned by Xbox when they made the first one. And they have been ever since the first one came out. So I'm hoping Outer Worlds 2 gets the State of Decay 3 treatment that we're all hoping State of Decay gets. That they get more time, more resources, and and that Outer Worlds 2 can be this like much bigger, much more fleshed out, much better than great game. And I'm super excited about that, but also understanding I probably won't see it for 2 years or so, if not more. The next one was announcing Microsoft Flight Simulator for Xbox. Finally, it will be on Game Pass. It comes out on July 27th, 2021. So here in about a month and a half. This game has been universally praised for how amazing it is on PC. I'm super excited to play it on console. This is like such a perfect game to stream because you can take off, you can just hang out, chat with chat, maybe do some stupid stuff, do like chat requests on places of the world to go see, because it's just wild. Of course, the first thing you have to do is go look at your own house. I'll do that on my own time so I don't dox myself in Flight Simulator. But Yeah, really just super excited about that game. It looks gorgeous. They even announced the Top Gun expansion that will be coming. That's going to give you the jets from the Top Gun movie that's coming out soon. The music is just so good for that. It is just so dope. And then next was the honestly probably the game of the show for me. And I did not expect this because I'm not a big fan of the franchise. Before the Horizon 5 was announced, obviously Game Pass day one, coming from Playground, who's also making Fable, by the way. Release date of 11/9/21, this November. It looks so good. Like knowing that this is the dev and the engine that is going to be handling Fable 2 or Fable, whatever they're going to call it, because they already released 2 and 3, I think. This Forza Horizon 5 was one of the most impressive visual spectacles I've ever seen from a video game preview. And what was so wild about it is there was like 4 or 5 moments during the show where they would show this like static shot, and you're like, oh, okay, this is like their source material. Like this is video from where they went to. This one takes place in Mexico. They went to Mexico and filmed, and this is the film. And then you would see the game cars come into frame, and then the camera would start to follow them, and you would realize that like it was in game. Like it's just so sick. And then the gameplay stuff they showed was great too. All these events and live world events and things you can do with your friends, and you can even make your own like competitions and stuff. Like I've never really gotten into Forza before, or Horizon. I used to play Forza like religiously. Horizon never really caught me, and I felt like the last Forza Horizon 4 that took place in England or London or whatever in that vicinity. I can't remember if it's not just the city because it takes place out in the country, so I assume it's London or England in general. It was just boring. I didn't like it. I thought it looked kind of whatever. But this one that takes place in Mexico looks like it's going to be a much more visually impressive game, and I'm just super excited for it. And finally, to wrap up the show, we had Redfall. This is a brand new IP. This is done by, I believe, Avalanche, who did Prey and some other games, which is highly regarded, but not really as popular as it probably should have been. This appears to be some type of co-op zombie hunting game. We know it's open world, and that's about all we know so far. The trailer was extremely high quality. I don't know if this is what I would have ended on. Personally, I would have probably switched this and Halo to have this be a big new IP announcement right in the middle of the show, and then Halo wrap it up maybe with maybe like 5 minutes of single player gameplay. I think that would have done well, but we'll take what we can get. This still looked really good. Obviously, you can't figure too much of it just from some cinematic teaser, but the general idea and the concepts presented in it seem really cool, and it just seemed like a cool thing. So I suggest all of these things. Every game I've talked about today, I suggest checking these shows out on your own. I think the Xbox is a don't miss show. I think Ubisoft Forward, you don't really need to go back and watch, to be totally honest. Maybe check out the Avatar trailer. And the Summer Games Fest, if you're into what was in it, then check it out. It was extremely high quality. But yeah. So, some other shows, Square Enix did a show that had a Guardians of the Galaxy game that actually looked kind of neat. Kind of a Mass Effect / Devil May Cry mashup. I liked it. It seemed really interesting. Other than that, it was kind of a dud of a show. I'm recording this on Monday, so we don't have the Nintendo show yet, but I will probably check that out. I don't plan on streaming it, though. We had the Gorilla did their weird thing. The thing about Gorilla is I appreciate that they're like known for kind of basically making a joke of this whole week and E3 in general. But none of the games they put out are really interesting. Like, they're I believe Gorilla is they aren't a dev themselves, but they're a publisher that publishes a bunch of like AAA or AA games. which is cool. I'm sure they have some bangers in there, but there it just comes off as kind of pretentious as of them being like, we're too good for E3. Look how funny and weird we are. And it's like, okay, neat. The PC show was fine. I didn't really notice anything from the summaries I read about it that were really worth talking about. And then the Koch show. Well, one, if you don't know, so in the United States, the Koch brothers, which is spelled the same way, are like super duper politically affiliated rich people who are very well known for funding one political party's efforts. And I just can't think of like this company needs to change their name because, like it or not, in the United States, the Coke name, or for them, it's Koch, is just the worst branding you can have. Because I just assumed it was just some part of some conglomerate. It's a completely separate company. It has nothing to do with Koch brothers. On top of that, their publisher and the developers that they showed, there were some games that were like AAA almost interesting, but it was just, I was watching the kind of funny coverage of it, and it was just so bad. It was atrociously bad. So don't watch the Koch game show, is what I'll say. There were a handful of others. I didn't catch them all. Overall, I think the Summer Games Fest was really entertaining. I think it was a little more lean than others do. I know some people were excited about what they talked about. It didn't catch me that much, but there was some interesting stuff. The Ubisoft Forward show was, I mean, we knew what was coming and we got what we knew, and that was about it. The Avatar showing was cool, but other than that, it was kind of a dud, but it was fine. The Xbox show, as from what I can remember, I've been watching E3 shows for 10 plus years at this point. I think it's the best showing they've ever had. It was the best presentation on its own merit, and the content was excellent. I could have gotten a Hellblade teaser. I could have gotten something from Scorn. I could have gotten, there were a handful of things that would have been nice to see, that I think really could have set it over the top. I really think if they would have wrapped up with a Hellblade trailer or something, I think Hellblade's going to become Xbox's God of War, if not surpass it. And I know that's a very bold claim, but that first game, I mean, for it being the first game of an IP with how just amazing it was, a bit simplistic, which I think will probably change in the sequel. It wasn't super deep, but from a storytelling, and I mean, I thought the combat was a lot of fun, but especially from a storytelling and graphics point of view, and considering how old that game is now, I think Hellblade very well could become one of the tent poles of Xbox. I genuinely believe that. So I think the show needed like one more banger to really set itself up. Because what's going to happen here in a week or 2 weeks is PlayStation sitting back, they're watching what's happening, especially the Xbox show. I'm sure that they've probably are at least in the middle of working on their presentation, and they kind of get to do this thing where they sit back and watch what Xbox does, and then one up them at any given moment. I don't think Xbox is super worried about that, but Sony definitely seems extremely concerned about selling those consoles and being perceived as the best. I think that that's a hard argument to make against them. But with their games, man, I would really like to see them have a exclusive multiplayer game that is really good and interesting. I would like to see them put out a first person shooter that's really good and interesting. I would like to see them delve into sports or something like that. I know they have Gran Turismo. I don't think it's regarded the same as Forza. I think Forza has surpassed Gran Turismo, especially if you think about Horizon and Forza Motorsports in the same category. I'm interested. I think the best case scenario for this generation is that Xbox really steps up their game, and finally and puts pressure on Sony for the first time in a whole generation to get to be better, because Sony's made a lot of weird decisions that I don't think they would make if they felt threatened, if they felt their dominance was threatened. I feel like they makes a lot of not necessarily anti-consumer decisions, but definitely king of the castle decisions, where they know that they can do or say about anything and they will still come out on top. So even if you're a big Sony fan and if you don't care about Xbox, you should still be rooting for Xbox, because Xbox is going to be the reason Sony finally starts putting more of their games on PC and doing it faster. Xbox will be the reason that they do stop relying so much on, vaguely the same genre for all of their really good exclusive games. Xbox will be the reason that Sony will eventually probably delve into a Game Pass competitor. Its competition is good, and I really think the last generation really suffered by the competition not really being a thing, especially on the game front. Hardware front, I think it's at least arguable that Xbox has always been highly competitive, especially with the One X, especially with the 360, and even the original Xbox. The original One X was less powerful than the PS4, or the OG one. But I think from a hardware and a consumer perspective, it's really hard to argue. I think they're neck and neck, if not Xbox with an advantage when it comes to that. But the fact is that software matters, and it's probably the most important thing for most people. And at the end of the day, those review scores for Xbox and PlayStation exclusives compared probably favor Sony significantly right now. The biggest issue with Xbox is that they just, in the last generation, didn't really have much notable stuff. Gears 5 came out and was extremely well regarded. The Forza games obviously were respected pretty well, but they, Halo 5, which I think was a cross-gen game as well. Maybe it wasn't. I can't remember off the top of my head. Wasn't really regarded that well. The biggest thing that Xbox had going for it towards the end of the generation was Game Pass and was the One X. The One X was a lot of people's choice for third-party games because it was a really good system. So I'm definitely curious to how Sony's going to come back. If you've paid attention, you'll know that on Thursday, Xbox is actually doing a follow-up show. Paris Lilly is going to be hosting a show where a bunch of the stuff we didn't see at the Xbox show will be shown there. So I believe Scorn is supposed to be there. I think Hellblade 2 will make an appearance there. I think there's a multitude of games, and they're gonna be like deeper dev conversations where it's not just a 30-second trailer, where it's some bigger things. Harris is extremely good and with those type of things. So I'm excited to watch him do his thing. I actually met him in San Francisco for a Division event, and he was like the nicest dude I've ever met. Him and that whole Gamertag Radio crew. So be sure to check that out. So down in the comments, let me know what you think, what you thought about the shows, what you thought about each thing, what games really got you excited, what games do you wish you would have seen. I'm definitely curious if you're on YouTube to let me know through there. If you're listening to the podcast, go to my tweet at Bon Diesel about this podcast and give me a heads up. Let me know what you thought about it. All those same questions. We do have one listener question this week. It's about the Division 2. Geostigma on Twitter asked, what are your thoughts on an increase to level 50 gear for the next Division 2 DLC? Absolutely not. No way. That would be a god-awful decision. That would be the most artificial way to get people to play the game again that they could possibly do. Because so far, people have already regrinded for their gear multiple times. The prospect of regrinding your gear, no matter what content comes out for Division 2 at the end of the year, the prospect of regrinding essentially from nothing, I don't think will bring many people back. If anything, I think it will bring fewer people back. This content that's coming I'm assuming it's going to be a bunch of small stuff and then this big new mode. Probably a bunch of little changes, hopefully changes to PvP, maybe just some general changes to the game to try to make it a little more exciting, a little more spicy, a little more replayable, just a little more fresh. Plus this new mode, the PvP needs to be part of this next patch. I've been very vocal about Division 2 and not giving a shit about the PvP because one, I think the PvP community in that game is not very, obviously this doesn't apply to everyone. I'm sure the majority of people are fine, but there's a lot of people in the PvP community of Division 2 that I just don't think need to be listened to. I think that there's a lot of interesting ways of thinking in that community that has always been very nasty for this game and very unhelpful. And my heart says that I don't give a damn about them ever getting what they want. But for the life of the game, for the longevity and the health of the IP, I really think they need to try to get PvP at least in a better spot, if not a good one. But yeah, level 50 would be rough. That would even make me think twice about coming back to play the game, no matter what they do, no matter what content is coming. That would be a big from me, because I just don't feel like doing that again. Give me some shit to do with my maxed out build, and some new gear to grind for, that makes me feel awesome. That is fun, and just I want to go back and do it again. Don't make me redo stuff from scratch. That's artificial longevity, in my opinion. It's an incredible question, though. Really good question, Gio. Thank you very much for submitting it. For content updates, please check out, if you have time or if you just want to have some noise in the background, on my YouTube. I do have 3 of my live replays from live reacting to the conferences on my YouTube, the Xbox Summer Games Fest and Ubisoft Forward, so you can kind of catch my live thoughts on all 3 of those. There are lots of games coming. I really want to start streaming at least a little bit again, even if it's just for a few hours here and there. I would really like to start streaming when these new games drop. So like next month, when we get Flight Simulator and when we get the Ascent, I would really love to get on and stream those a decent amount. I recently was able to acquire a Elgato 4K 60 Mark II capture card, which is why you've started to see some 4K videos popping up on my YouTube for a really good price. I got it for $100. It's typically a $250 card. And it's awesome. I give Elgato a lot of shit for being way overpriced and for having garbage customer service. I still believe those two things. But I've been able to get, if I can get one of their products for $150 off, I'm gonna roll with that. It is a nice piece of hardware. The best part of it, in my opinion, for the stuff I'm trying to do, is if I stream, I can capture the gameplay for my stream, and record the gameplay without any of my streaming stuff in a separate window at the same time. It can do 2 captures at once. It's a very powerful piece of hardware. It's great. So I do want to start streaming again. So, especially as these new games come, I'll be doing that. As if Heartland ever comes out, I would love to stream some of that. Depending on how it goes, when Division 2 content eventually drops again, I would love to do that as well. Mass Effect, I eventually want to get back to doing some more side playthroughs with that. I've done my perfect playthrough finally, where it all ended the way I want. So if Mass Effect 4 uses your 3 save from Legendary Edition, I've got the save I want to use where Shepard lives and Tally's my girl. And even Division 2, I've been considering starting a brand new character and playing the game from nothing, because for the ups and downs of that game and where it's at right now, I still do honestly think that 1 to 30 is a lot of fun. And I would really like to play Warlords of New York from scratch again. I've only played it the one time. I actually played all of Warlords of New York in one day, one big stream. I think I did like a 10-hour stream. And I would really like to experience that again, and maybe not rush it so much. Maybe try to take it in a little bit more. So So that's where we're coming with content updates. And that's kind of what I have for right now. I am Bon Diesel on Twitch, where I do hope to start seeing some of you a bit more. If you would, please donate to my Extra Life 2021 campaign. The link is extralife.org/. BAUN_DIESEL, or you can just search for Bon Diesel on there. You can also catch the link. It should be on my Twitter. My Twitter is at Bon Diesel or at the EchoCast if you only want gaming stuff and you don't want any of my personal musings. There's two different accounts. If you want some cool The EchoCast or Bon Diesel merch, please check out streamlabs.com/Bon Diesel. I do have the new EchoCast logo on there on mugs and sweaters and t-shirts and a mouse pad, I think. It's great. I'm actually really happy with it. So if you want, that's another way to support the show if you want. So that said, that's all I have. So until next time.